In London, England, circa 1698, a rumor began to spread. Supposedly, there was to be a lion washing ceremony in the Tower of London on April 1st. Of course, there was no lion washing ceremony, and to this day, the washing the lions prank is one of the earliest examples of an April Fool's Day prank. But when did April Fool's Day actually begin, and how? I mean, it's hard to imagine a group of people coming together and just saying, "Today we will prank each other for no reason." So, let's dive into the mystery of the origins of April Fool's Day. 12 years before the lion washing prank, a man by the name of John Aubrey wrote about an event he called Fool's Holy Day. He wrote, "We observe it on the 1st of April, and so it is kept in Germany everywhere." But this is far from the first reference to the holiday. Let's go back about half a century to the year 1634. Lorraine was a dukedom in the Holy Roman Empire. However, it was annexed by the French, who decided to keep the Duke and Duchess captive in the city of Nancy. On April 1st, though, the two walked out of the city disguised as peasants. When a person noticed their disguise, they informed a guard, but the guard thought it was an April Fool's joke, or in French, a poisson d'avril, and so the two prisoners escaped the city without any trouble. So far, we've only talked about references to April Fool's Day, but where did it actually come from? Well, here's the first theory. In 1582, France switched from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, the latter being the one we now use. Some people weren't aware of this change, and they continued to celebrate New Year's on the wrong day. Funnily enough, the first day of the Julian calendar corresponds to the 1st of April on the Gregorian calendar, and so the people who celebrated New Year's on April 1st were mocked as April Fools. This theory is one of the most popular and convincing. It seems like there should be no debate that this is how April Fools started. The only problem is that there are references to April Fools that are older than the calendar change. Let's have a look at those. In 1561, 2 decades before the calendar change, the poet Edward de Den wrote a poem about sending his servant on a fool's errand. Similarly, in 1508, 7 decades before the calendar change, another poet by the name of Éloy d'Amerval wrote about a poisson d'avril, which, as discussed, is the French word for April Fools. It could still be the case that the phrase had a different meaning back then, preserving the calendar change theory. There are still other theories, though, so let's go further back. 1 century before Éloy d'Amerval's poem, Geoffrey Chaucer wrote his famous book, The Canterbury Tales. In The Nun's Priest's Tale, a fox tricks a man on the day sin March began 30 days and 2. Don't worry, Chaucer wasn't dyslexic. Remember that this was written over 600 years ago, when the English dialect was very different. In our own English, this would translate roughly to since March began 32 days, which would be April 1st. However, in the lines before this, Chaucer had written, "In the month which is called March was complete." Therefore, the phrase can also be interpreted as 32 days after the end of March, which would be May 3rd. It's really difficult to tell if Chaucer was referring to April Fool's Day or not. From here on, we start to get into ancient history. There are theories that April Fool's Day comes from the Roman Empire. The Romans celebrated Hilaria, a festival in springtime where people would play games and host masquerades. They also celebrated the Saturnalia, where slaves would pretend to rule their masters, and all would joke around and have fun. It should be noted, however, that the Saturnalia was celebrated during December, and is therefore believed to have been the precursor to Christmas, not April Fool's Day. Let's go further back. In Roman mythology, the god Pluto abducts the goddess Proserpina. Her mother journeys across the world to find her, but ultimately her search was but a fool's errand. In the Bible, Jesus Christ, supposedly on April 1st, was sent from Pontius Pilate to King Herod, then back to Pontius Pilate on a fool's errand. In Genesis, Noah sent the dove from the ark to search for dry land, but the dove found none and had only gone on a fool's errand. These three examples show that April Fools may even have a mythical or biblical origin. Every theory has caveats, and the true origin may be something completely different that no one's thought about before. So how did April Fools really start? We may never know for sure.